Okay, Lynn, as you know, and certainly as your last answer reflects, although you have called for Obama's removal from office and have called for the invocation of the 25th Amendment, Vice President Biden is reluctant to take such action. And one of the things that we believe is necessary is essentially to provide Biden with a list of particulars that he can march into the Oval Office with and say to President Obama, look, if you have any hope of saving your presidency and of saving the nation, this is what you must do. Lynn, I know you will see this as compromise, but we don't. It's a necessary step if, in fact, there is any hope of moving to do something as serious as invoking the 25th Amendment. What would you suggest be put on such a list of particulars?
I am not opposed to doing that, but it has to be done with a certain higher goal in mind. Yes, you know, when you're going in to pluck the chicken, so to speak, you have to have an end result in mind. Why are you plucking the feathers from this chicken? Perhaps because you intend to cook it, which would be a good idea. So therefore, obviously there is, in the very short term, what is required is a rapid fire of successive measures which lead to the orchestration of the result. One has to think like a master dramatist. And what you need is to approach this with the mind of a master dramatist. You have a tragedy before you, and the tragedy is going to end with the subject of the tragedy being carried out off stage. He's off the stage, will be off the stage. Now, how do you orchestrate the drama which brings you to that intended result? How does the greatest tragedian treat such cases in actual history? That's what you have to do. Now, list of these things are, first of all, reasonable. You have to go, Mr. President, these are your mistakes, Mr. President. These are things which no president should have done. These are things that any president should have done. And so forth. You would take, for example, health care. Mr. President, you've brought in a set of measures which are tantamount to what Adolf Hitler did in Germany and what your predecessor in Britain has done, Tony Blair, with his NICE program. You've introduced a health care policy which echoes that of Adolf Hitler. Mr. President, you've got to stop that. You've got to change that, and so forth. So you go through those kinds of measures. Now, you have to, when you do that, you've got to take into view the fact this guy is really a lunatic. Don't go in there with saying, we're going to treat him as if he was a normal human being and tell him he's got to behave more reasonably. This man is a lunatic. He will not hear you. This lunatic will not hear you. So you're going to appeal to reason with... What kind of a fantasy life are you living in if you think that's going to work? Now, what you're going to do, you're going to act not to persuade him. You're going to act to persuade people that they have to do something about him. So what you say to him is irrelevant, as insofar as it's addressed to him, because you've got to think about addressing the people who will hear what you propose. And what I would suggest is we have a famous case in France by a famous French writer, Accuses. I accuse you, I accuse you, I accuse you, I accuse you. Now that was never implemented officially, but the impact of that being written had an effect upon the history of France, which was good. It was not sufficient, but it was good at the time. And that's what we're dealing with. You have to list the errors he's made. It's a bill, it should be a bill of indictment, not a proposal for a compromise. You cannot get a compromise with a guy. Why try for it? You don't want to compromise with this guy. You want to answer the question that the citizens out there are going to ask. You don't address this president, you address those citizens. What's your problem? You've got citizens out there who are frightened, who are confused, who are going to make excuses for this president. You're going to strip them of the ability to defend him in their own conscience. You're going to appeal to the conscience of the citizen, the crimes this guy has committed. You want to present it to him, a list? Good. Excellent. But who's going to hear it? You trying to talk to this president? You want to talk to the chicken about the price of eggs? No, you're dealing with a political process. What you have to do, you're showing leadership of the type that's relevant. And I believe that the kind of people I'm talking about will understand that, what leadership is. You're capturing the imagination of the American people, including leading circles in and around government. You know you've got a bunch of cowards out there among our leading members of Congress, even the lame duck group and others. They're cowards. They've proven to me to great satisfaction that they have achieved the acme of cowardice, political cowardice, in their recent period in office. I know they're cowards. They may not be cowards in every respect. They're willing to cook the chicken or something like that. They're not cowards in that matter. But what you're trying to do is mobilize the political forces and with a resonance with the citizens out there who are going to be looking at you for everything you say, really, sooner or later. And you're presenting a case. In other words, you're not walking around gossiping about the president, the lunatic, the nutcase. You're not gossiping about it. You're not being mean. You're not starting a gossip action against him. You're challenging him to his snout. You tell him, Mr. President, j'accuse. I accuse you. I accuse you. I accuse you. The American people accuse you. We accuse you. And you say it in such a way, point by point, to reach the ears of whom? To reach the ears of leading political figures who have a conscience, that you have laid out the evidence which convicts him. You're presenting a conviction. You're making a judgment and you're presenting a conviction, a statement of conviction on that judgment. That's what you're confronted with. Now, what's his reaction? His reaction is to go into a new mental state. So you have to think about who's holding the net when this guy goes wild. He will go wild, one way or the other. Either catatonic, a suicide like Hitler, a suicide like Nero. You have to understand he is insane. He's clinically insane. Did you ever try to deal with an insane person? Were you ever face to face in dealing with and trying to handle an insane person? Any contrary assumption, any assumption that he's not an insane person, it's a terrible mistake. It's a dangerous mistake. Your job is to convince the people around him in official position and the citizens that he has to be thrown out. That will get him out. But you have to go in there and do that. Maybe you want to do it over the other side of the fence, but you have to do it.